My daughter left her 5-year-old paralyzed son at my door and never came back. That was 10 years ago. I raised him myself. Everyone said he'd never succeed. Too different. Too difficult. Too broken. They were wrong. By 15, he'd built software worth $2.5 million. Then the news covered his story. The local channels. Then the national ones. Everyone wanted to know about the paralyzed teenager who'd created something revolutionary, something that could verify authenticity, expose lies, protect truth. 2 weeks later, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. We didn't get visitors much. Just us, the way it had always been. The way she'd made it when she drove away and left us with nothing but each other. I opened the door. And there she was. My daughter. Standing on my porch like she'd just come back from the grocery store. Like 10 years hadn't passed. Like she hadn't abandoned her son when he needed her most. Like she hadn't left me to figure out how to care for a paralyzed 5-year-old when I was already 57 and my back ached every morning and I didn't know the first thing about wheelchairs or therapy or any of it. She smiled. That same smile. The one she used when she wanted something. But she wasn't alone. There was a man in a suit beside her. Expensive suit. Leather briefcase. The kind of lawyer you hire when you're planning to take something that doesn't belong to you. "Hi, Mom," she said, like it was normal. Like it was fine. Like I should just let her in and pretend the last decade hadn't happened. I couldn't speak. My throat closed up. My hand started shaking. She held up a folder. Thick. Official looking. "We need to talk," she said. "About my son. My son. My son." After 10 years of silence, after 10 years of me doing everything, feeding him, bathing him, lifting him, fighting for him, loving him, she shows up and calls him my son. The lawyer spoke then. Cold. Professional. "Mrs. Vivian, I'm Robert Hendricks, representing Ms. Amanda Connate. We have documentation showing my client has maintained consistent involvement in her son's upbringing and is now seeking formal custody and financial guardianship, given the recent assets involved." Assets. He meant the money. The $2.5 million my grandson had earned with his own brilliance, his own hands, his own mind that never stopped working even when his legs couldn't move. They came for the money. I wanted to slam the door in their faces. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab her by the shoulders and shake her and ask her where she'd been when he cried himself to sleep because he couldn't understand why his mother didn't want him. Where she'd been when he was 8 years old and kids at school called him a cripple and he came home asking me if something was wrong with him. Where she'd been during the seizures, the infections, the nights I thought I might lose him. But I couldn't move. The lawyer continued. "We have financial records, visit logs, correspondence, all documenting Ms. Connate's ongoing parental involvement. We'd like to handle this amicably, but we're prepared to proceed legally if necessary. Visit logs. Financial records. Correspondence. All lies. Every single word. But they had papers. Official-looking papers with dates and signatures and stamps. And I had nothing. Nothing but the truth, and the truth doesn't always win." I heard the wheelchair behind me. The software of the motor. My grandson had heard everything. He rolled up beside me. 15 years old. Small for his age because his legs had never developed properly, but his eyes were sharp, always watching, always thinking. He looked at his mother. She looked at him. For a moment, something flickered across her face. Shame, maybe. Or calculation. I couldn't tell anymore. "Hello, sweetie," she said, her voice dripping with false warmth. "I've missed you so much." I felt sick. My grandson didn't react. He just studied her like she was a problem to solve. Then he leaned toward me and whispered, so quiet only I could hear, "Let her talk." I stared at him. Let her talk? We were about to lose everything, and he wanted her to keep lying? But he just sat there, calm, watching her with those intelligent eyes. And I had no idea what he was about to do. My name is Vivian, and I'm 67 years old. This is the story of how I lost my daughter, found my purpose, and almost lost my grandson to her lies. Before I tell you the rest, I need you to understand something. I need you to know that I'm not special. I'm not a hero. I'm just a grandmother who did what needed to be done when no one else would. But I'm angry. God, I'm so angry. Angry at my daughter for being so selfish, so cruel. Angry at a system that would even consider giving her custody after what she did. Angry at myself for not filing the legal paperwork, for thinking love and sacrifice would be enough proof. And I'm in pain. The kind that doesn't go away. The kind that sits in your chest and reminds you every single day that the person you raised, the child you brought into this world, thought so little of you, and her own son, that she could just walk away. This is that story. Let me take you back to that moment when everything fell apart. When my daughter rang my doorbell 10 years ago, but not the way she did with her lawyer. No, the first time, she was different. Desperate. Frantic. It was a Tuesday morning. Early. I was still in my robe, hadn't even had my coffee yet. The doorbell rang 3 times, fast, urgent. I opened it, and there she was with my grandson. He was 5 years old, sitting in a small wheelchair, one of those pediatric ones that looked too big for him because he was so small, so fragile. "Mom," she said, and she was crying. Real tears, or what looked like real tears. I've learned since then that I can't always talk with her. "Mom, I need help." The accident had been 6 months earlier. Car crash. My grandson had been in the back seat. Spinal injury. The doctors said he'd never walk again. My daughter has tried, so I'll give her that. For 6 months, she'd tried. But I watched her crumble under the weight of it. The medical appointments. The therapy. The equipment. The stares from strangers. The reality that her son would need her for everything, forever. "I just need a weekend," she said that morning. "Just 2 days, Mom. I can't. I can't breathe. I need to think. I need to figure things out." My grandson sat in his wheelchair, silent. He had a small duffel bag on his lap. I looked inside it later. 3 shirts. 2 pairs of pants. 1 stuffed bear that was missing an eye. That's what she'd packed for her son. For 2 days. I should have known then. "Amanda," I said. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Are you okay? Do you need to talk?" "I just need 2 days," she repeated. "Please, Mom. Just watch him for 2 days. I'll be back Sunday night." What was I supposed to say? He was my grandson. My own flesh and blood, sitting there in that wheelchair, looking up at me with those big brown eyes that hadn't learned yet to expect disappointment. "Okay," I said. 2 days. She kissed him on the forehead. Quick. Perfunctory. Like checking off a box. Then she was gone. I brought my grandson inside. Lifted him, God, my back screamed even then, and got him settled on the couch. The wheelchair didn't fit through half the doorways in my house. I hadn't thought about accessibility. Why would I? "Grandma," he said. His voice was so small. "Yes, sweetheart? Is Mommy coming back?" Of course, I lied. Just 2 days. Sunday night came and went. No Amanda. I called her phone. Straight to voicemail. I called again Monday morning. Tuesday. Wednesday. Nothing. I drove to her apartment on Thursday. The landlord said she'd cleared out. Took everything. Didn't leave a forwarding address. That's when I knew. She wasn't coming back. She'd left him, left us, with nothing but that half-empty duffel bag and each other. I sat in my car outside her empty apartment and I cried. Not quiet tears. Loud, ugly, furious sobs that made my chest hurt. How could she do this? How could she abandon her own child? And what the hell was I supposed to do now? I was 57 years old. I'd raised my daughter. I'd done my time. I'd been looking forward to retirement, to finally having time for myself, to traveling maybe, or at least sleeping in. Instead, I was starting over. With a paralyzed 5-year-old who needed round-the-clock care. I drove home. Sat in the driveway for 20 minutes before I could make myself go inside. My grandson was watching TV from the couch where I'd left him, positioned with pillows so he wouldn't fall. He'd been there for hours. Hadn't complained once. "Grandma," he said when I walked in. "Did you find Mommy?" I knelt beside him. Brushed the hair from his forehead. "No, baby," I said. "But we're going to be okay. You and me. We're going to figure this out." He nodded. Like he'd already known. Like he'd been expecting it. "Okay, Grandma," he said. And just like that, he became mine. The first month was hell. Pure, unfiltered hell. I didn't know anything about caring for a paralyzed child. The hospital had given Amanda discharge papers, instructions, medication lists, but she'd taken all of that with her. Or throw it away. I had nothing. I had to learn everything from scratch. How to help him use the bathroom. How to prevent bed sores. How to transfer him from the wheelchair to the bed to the bath back to the wheelchair. My back gave out in the second week. I bent to lift him one morning and something popped. Pain shot down my spine like lightning. I fell to my knees. My grandson started crying. Not because he was hurt, but because he thought he'd hurt me. "I'm sorry, Grandma," he sobbed. "I'm sorry, I'm too heavy." I wanted to die right there. This little boy, apologizing for existing, for needing help, for having been abandoned by the one person who should have loved him unconditionally. "No," I said through gritted teeth. I pulled myself up using the bed frame. "No, baby. This is not your fault. None of this is your fault." But I had to get smarter. Stronger. I called a medical supply company. Got a Hoyer lift, one of those mechanical devices that helps transfer patients. I had to take out a credit card to pay for it. $1,800 I didn't have. But it saved my back. And it gave me a few more years of being able to care for him. I learned about physical therapy. YouTube became my teacher. I watched video after video, taking notes, trying exercises with him on the living room floor. His legs didn't work, but I could help keep his muscles from atrophying completely. I could help him build upper body strength. Every night, I'd do stretches with him. Move his legs through the range of motion the videos showed. He'd wince sometimes, it hurt, even though he couldn't feel much, but he never told me to stop. "We have to keep trying," I'd say. And he'd nod. "Keep trying, Grandma." I started keeping records of everything. Every medical appointment, and there were dozens in those first months. Every expense. Every milestone. I kept a notebook. Blue spiral bound. I still have it. On the first page, I wrote the date she left. And then I started documenting everything. Not because I thought I'd need proof someday. Not because I was thinking ahead to custody battles or lawyers. I did it because I was terrified. Terrified I'd forget something important. Terrified I'd miss a medication or an appointment and something terrible would happen to him. I was flying blind, and that notebook was my map. But it was hard. God, it was so hard. There were nights I'd lie awake, my whole body aching, wondering if I was doing it right. Wondering if he'd be better off with someone younger, someone who knew what they were doing. Social workers came. I hadn't called them. Someone at the hospital must have flagged the case when Amanda stopped bringing him to appointments. A woman named Jennifer showed up at my door. Mid-30s. Clipboard. Skeptical eyes. Mrs. Conate, she said. I'm here to do a welfare check on. She looked at her clipboard, James Conate. He goes by Jamie, I said. She nodded. Wrote something down. She walked through my house. Looked at everything. The wheelchair in the living room. The lift beside the bed. The medications lined up on the Kit Baskin counter. She interviewed Jamie. Asked him if he felt safe. If he had enough to eat. If Grandma was taking good care of him. He said yes to everything. But I could see it in her face. The doubt. When she came back to the living room, she sat across from me. Mrs. Conate, she said carefully, I can see you're trying. But caring for a child with this level of need, it's a lot. Especially for someone your age. My age. I was 57. Not ancient. Not decrepit. But to her, I was old. Too old. I'm managing, I said. For now, she replied. But what happens when you can't? What happens when you're 70 and he's a teenager and he's grown and you physically can't lift him anymore? I'll figure it out, I said. I always do. She gave me a sad smile. The kind people give you when they think you're delusional. I'm going to recommend some support services, she said. Home health aides. Respite care. And I'll be checking in regularly. She left me a stack of pamphlets. Resources for grandparents raising grandchildren. Support groups. Financial assistance programs. I threw them all away. I didn't want support groups. I didn't want to sit around with other people and talk about how hard everything was. I just wanted to keep him. I just wanted to make sure he was okay. And I was so angry. Angry that Amanda had put me in this position. Angry that I had to prove myself to strangers. Angry that loving him wasn't enough, I had to be evaluated, monitored, judged. But I kept going. Because what else could I do? Jamie was quiet those first few years. Scarily quiet. He'd sit for hours, just watching things. Watching me cook. Watching birds outside the window. Watching the way light moved across the floor as the day progressed. I worried about him. Worried that he was depressed, that the trauma of everything, the accident, his mother leaving, his new life, had broken something inside him. I tried to engage him. Bought him toys. Books. Art supplies. He'd use them politely, but I could tell his heart wasn't in it. Then one day, when he was 7, everything changed. I'd gotten him a cheap tablet for his birthday. Nothing fancy. Just something so he could play games, watch videos, have some entertainment. He disappeared into it. Not in a bad way. Not in that zombie-like way kids sometimes get with screens. He was learning. I'd walk by and see him watching coding tutorials. Programming courses meant for adults. Computer science lectures. Jamie, I said once. Do you understand that? He looked up at me. Yeah, Grandma. It makes sense. He was 7 years old. By 8, he was writing simple programs. Little games. A calculator. A to-do list app. By 9, he was building more complex things. I didn't understand any of it. He'd try to explain, something about databases and user interfaces and algorithms, but it all went over my head. That's wonderful, sweetheart, I'd say, even though I had no idea what I was looking at. But I could see it mattered to him. I could see him coming alive in a way he hadn't since before the accident. He started modifying his wheelchair. Added a phone mount so he could code while moving around. Attached a portable charger. Created a voice control system so he could adjust the speed and direction without using the joystick. He was 10 when he built his first assistive device for himself. A modified keyboard that compensated for the limited mobility in his hands. His fingers worked, but not with the precision most people had. He called it an adaptive interface. I called it a miracle. Jamie, I said, watching him type faster than I ever could. You're brilliant. You know that? He ducked his head. Embarrassed. I just like solving problems, he said. He couldn't walk. His body had betrayed him in ways no child should have to endure. But his mind ran faster than anyone I'd ever met. And I realized something then. Something important. Amanda had left him because she saw his disability. She saw what he couldn't do. But I saw what he could do. And what he could do was extraordinary. The system didn't make it easy. Schools didn't want him. Too much accommodation required, they said. Too expensive. Too disruptive. I fought them. God, I fought them. I sat in meeting after meeting with principals and special education coordinators and district administrators. I brought in documentation, federal laws, ADA requirements, everything I'd researched late at night after Jamie went to bed. He has a right to education, I said at one particularly frustrating meeting. The principal, a middle-aged man with zero patience, had just suggested homeschooling would be easier for everyone. Mrs. Connate, he said in that condescending tone people use when they think you're being difficult. I'm not saying he can't be educated. I'm saying our school isn't equipped. Then get equipped, I snapped. Figure it out. Because he's coming here, and he's getting the same education every other child gets. They didn't like me much after that. But they accepted him. Sort of. He was isolated. The other kids didn't know how to talk to him. The teachers treated him like he was fragile, like he might break if they asked too much of him. He came home one day, 3rd grade, with tears in his eyes. Grandma, he said. Am I broken? My heart shattered. What? No, baby. Why would you think that? Tommy said I'm a cripple. He said I'm broken and that's why my mom didn't want me. I saw red. Pure, blinding red. I wanted to find Tommy and his parents and explain exactly what kind of people raised a child who would say something so cruel. But Jamie was looking at me, waiting for an answer. I knelt beside his wheelchair. Took his small hands in mine. You are not broken, I said. You're different. And the difference is not less. Your mom didn't leave because of you. She left because she was weak. Because she couldn't handle being the mother you deserved. That's her failure, not yours. He nodded, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. Kids believe what other kids tell them. They believe it more than they believe adults. That doubt stayed with him. I saw it in the way he'd watch other children play, running and jumping and doing all the things his body wouldn't let him do. But I also saw determination. He threw himself into the things he could control. His mind. His skills. His code. By the time he was 12, he'd built tools that people actually wanted to use. A browser extension that made websites more accessible for people with disabilities. A screen reader that was faster and more accurate than the commercial ones. He posted them online for free. People downloaded them. Thousands of people. And then the messages started coming. Thank you. This changed my life. I can finally use my computer independently. Jamie would read them to me, his voice full of wonder. Grandma, he said once. I'm helping people. You are, baby, I said. You're doing something important. That's when I saw it. The shift. He wasn't just a disabled kid anymore. Not in his own mind. He was a creator. A problem solver. Someone who mattered. And I was so proud of him I could barely breathe. But the system kept pushing back. Social workers still came by. Not Jennifer anymore, she'd moved on, but others. They'd check on us. Ask questions. Look around like they were waiting for me to fail. One of them, a man named Derek, was particularly aggressive. Mrs. Conate, he said during one visit. Jamie was 13 then. I have to be honest. I'm concerned. About what? I asked, keeping my voice level even though I wanted to scream at him to get out of my house. You're 64 years old. You're managing now, but in a few years. In a few years I'll be older, I interrupted. And I'll still be taking care of him. What's your point? My point is that Jamie might benefit from a younger guardian. Someone who can keep up with his needs as he grows. Keep up with his needs. As if I hadn't been keeping up for 8 years already. Derek, I said, and my voice was ice. Unless you have evidence that Jamie is being neglected or abused, I suggest you close this case and move on. I've been raising him successfully. He's healthy, educated, and happy. My age is irrelevant. Derek didn't like that. But he couldn't argue with the facts. Jamie was thriving. His grades were excellent. His health was stable. And he was building things that impressed even the adults who worked in tech. But I lived in fear. Every time someone from social services knocked on my door, my stomach dropped. Every time a teacher looked at me with concern, I wondered if this was it, if this was the moment they'd decide I wasn't good enough. I kept documenting everything. The blue notebook became multiple notebooks. Then folders. Then a whole filing cabinet. Every doctor's visit. Every therapy session. Every school meeting. Every expense. I kept receipts for everything. Every prescription. Every piece of equipment. Every modification to the house to make it more accessible. I didn't know why I was so obsessive about it. Or maybe I did. Maybe some part of me knew that Amanda would come back eventually. That money or opportunity or just plain greed would bring her back. And when she did, I'd need proof. I'd need evidence that I was the one who'd been there. That I was the one who'd raised him. That I was the one who'd earned the right to keep him. When Jamie was 14, he started working on something different. He'd built apps before. Tools. Programs. But this was bigger. He called it an authentication system. A way to verify if documents, images, videos, any digital content, was real or fake. Grandma, he explained one night while I made dinner. People lie all the time. They fake documents. They edit photos. They create false records. And it's getting easier to do. AI is making it almost impossible to tell what's real. Okay, I said, not entirely following. So I'm building something that can tell the difference. Something that analyzes metadata, timestamps, digital fingerprints, everything. And it creates a blockchain record that can't be altered. I nodded like I understood. I didn't. But I could see the fire in his eyes. This mattered to him. He worked on it for months. Every spare moment. He'd stay up late, the glow of his computer screen lighting up his face in the dark. I'd find him asleep at his desk, his head on his keyboard, code still running on his monitor. "Jamie," I'd say softly, shaking his shoulder. "Bed." He'd grumble but let me help him into bed. Those were good nights. Tired nights, but good. He had a purpose. He had passion. And I had him. That felt like enough. But then things changed. He finished the program when he was 15. Actually finished it. And it worked. Better than he'd hoped. He posted it online. Open source at first. Let people test it. The tech community went crazy for it. Within a week, he had 50,000 downloads. Within a month, he had companies reaching out. Big companies. Security firms. Media organizations. Anyone who needed to verify authenticity. One of them made an offer. $2.5 million to buy the software and exclusive rights. $2.5 million. My 15-year-old grandson had just become a multimillionaire. I cried when he told me. Not tears of joy exactly. Tears of overwhelm. Relief. Fear. Pride. All of it at once. "Grandma," he said, taking my hand. "We're going to be okay now. I can pay you back for everything. The equipment, the medical bills, everything you've spent on me." "Jamie, no," I said. "I didn't do it for money. I did it because I love you." "I know," he said. "But now I can help. Now I can make it easier." The money was life-changing. Suddenly we didn't have to worry. I could hire help, a part-time aide to assist with the physical care when my back couldn't take it. I could get him better equipment, a newer wheelchair, a modified van so he could be more independent. For the first time in 10 years, I could breathe. But with the money came attention. The news picked up the story. Local news first. Paralyzed teen builds multi-million-dollar software. Then regional. Then national. Reporters called. Wanted interviews. Wanted to talk to the boy genius who'd overcome so much. Jamie hated it. The attention made him uncomfortable. But I convinced him to do a few interviews. "Your story matters," I told him. "You can inspire people." So he did one interview. Then another. And that's when everything fell apart. Because 2 weeks after his story aired on national television, 2 weeks after the whole country knew about the paralyzed teenager who'd built verification software worth millions, my doorbell rang. And there she was. Amanda. My daughter. After 10 years of silence, 10 years of absence, 10 years of making me wonder if she was even alive, there she was. With a lawyer and a briefcase full of lies. I let them in. I don't know why. Maybe shock. Maybe some stupid part of me that still wanted to believe my daughter had a good reason. Maybe I was just too stunned to do anything else. They sat in my living room. Amanda on the couch, the lawyer in the armchair. Jamie in his wheelchair next to me, silent, watching. "Mom," Amanda said, and her voice was soft, almost sad. "I know this must be confusing." Confusing. That's what she called it. 10 years of abandonment was confusing. "I've been gone a long time," she continued. "And I know that hurt you. It hurt me too. But I want you to understand, I never stopped being his mother." The lawyer opened his briefcase. Pulled out folders. Thick ones. "Ms. Connate has been in contact with Jamie throughout his childhood," he said. "We have documentation proving consistent parental involvement." He spread papers across my coffee table. Financial records showing wire transfers, allegedly from Amanda to me for Jamie's care. Visit logs claiming she'd seen him dozens of times over the years. Emails and letters I'd never received, never even knew existed. All of it looked official. Dates. Signatures. Details. All of it was lies. But they looked real. "This is insane," I said. My voice was shaking. "You've never sent money. You've never visited. You've never even called." Amanda's eyes filled with tears. Fake tears. The same ones she'd used 10 years ago when she left him here. "I know it seems that way, Mom," she said. "But I was going through treatment. Severe depression. I wasn't well enough to be present the way I wanted to be. But I was always there in spirit. And I made sure you had the resources you needed." "I never received a dime from you," I said. The lawyer interjected. "Our records show otherwise. These are bank statements from Ms. Konate's account, showing regular transfers to your account for Jamie's care." He handed me the papers. I looked at them. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely read them. But I saw my account number. I saw transfer amounts. I saw dates going back years. Except none of it had happened. I'd never received those transfers. "This is fake," I said. "All of this is fake." "Mrs. Vivian," the lawyer said, his voice dripping with false patience. "I understand you're upset. But these are official bank records. We can subpoena your bank if you'd like to verify." My stomach dropped. Would the bank show transfers I'd never received? Had she somehow forged those records too? "Why are you doing this?" I asked Amanda. "Why now?" She looked at me with those big, innocent eyes. The same eyes Jamie had. "Because he's my son," she said simply. "And now that he's successful, now that he has resources, I want to be part of his life again. I want to be his mother." "You want his money," I thought. "You want what he's built." But I didn't say it. Because what proof did I have? I had my notebooks. My receipts. My documentation of 10 years of care. But she had official-looking bank records and visit logs and a lawyer with an expensive suit. "We'd like to resolve this amicably," the lawyer said. "Ms. Conate is requesting joint custody with financial guardianship of Jamie's assets until he reaches 18. Joint custody. Financial guardianship. She wanted control of his money. And she wanted to take him from me." "No," I said. "Absolutely not." "Then we'll file in court," the lawyer said. "And I have to warn you, Mrs. Vivian, you never filed for legal guardianship. Technically, Ms. Conate still has full parental rights. If we go to court, the burden will be on you to prove she abandoned him. And our documentation suggests otherwise." I felt the room spin. He was right. I'd never filed for guardianship. I'd never even thought about it. I'd been too busy surviving, too busy caring for Jamie, too busy just trying to get through each day. I'd assumed that being here, doing the work, would be enough. But it wasn't. Love wasn't enough. Sacrifice wasn't enough. I needed legal proof. And I didn't have it. I looked at Jamie. He'd been quiet through all of this, just watching, listening. And then he leaned toward me and whispered, "Let her talk." I stared at him. What? Let her talk? We were about to lose everything, he was about to lose everything, and he wanted her to keep lying? But his face was calm. His eyes were clear. He had a plan. I didn't know what it was. But I trusted him. So I sat back. And I let her talk. Amanda talked for 20 minutes straight. She painted a picture of a devoted mother who'd struggled with mental health, who'd sent money regularly, who'd visited when she could, who'd always stayed in contact even when I tried to keep her away. She was good. I'll give her that. She cried at the right moments. Her voice broke when she talked about missing so much of his childhood. She looked at Jamie with what almost seemed like genuine love. But I knew better. I'd seen her look at him the day she left. Like he was a burden. Like he was the anchor dragging her down. This was an act. The lawyer backed up every claim. Showed more documents. Cited laws and precedents. Given the documentation we have, he concluded, we believe any court would rule in favor of Ms. Konate's custodial and financial rights. However, we're willing to work out an arrangement. Shared custody. Ms. Konate assumes primary guardianship of Jamie's estate, but you can remain involved in his daily care. In other words, I could still be the free caretaker while she controlled the money. I felt bile rise in my throat. I need to speak with my lawyer, I said finally. The lawyer nodded. Of course. We'll give you 48 hours. But I should mention, we've already drafted the custody petition. If we don't reach an agreement, we'll file first thing Monday. They stood to leave. Amanda walked over to Jamie. Knelt beside his wheelchair. I've missed you so much, sweetheart, she said. I know Grandma has taken good care of you. But I'm your mother. And I want us to be together again. Jamie looked at her. His face was unreadable. Okay, he said simply. She smiled. Kissed his forehead. Then she left. And I collapsed. I called a lawyer that same afternoon. A family law attorney named Patricia Brennan who came highly recommended. I spread everything out for her. My notebooks. My receipts. My documentation of 10 years of care. And Amanda's forged documents claiming involvement she'd never had. Patricia reviewed everything. She was thorough. Quiet. Her face gave nothing away. Finally, she looked up at me. Mrs. Konate, she said gently. This is going to be difficult. My heart sank. You have excellent documentation of care, she continued. But it's informal. Personal records. Nothing legally binding. And her documentation, forged or not, looks official. Bank records. Visit logs with specific dates and times. Without proof they're fabricated, a court might accept them as valid. But they're lies, I said. All of it. I believe you, Patricia said. But belief isn't evidence. We'd need to prove forgery. That means forensic analysis of documents, subpoenaing banks, deposing witnesses. It's expensive and time-consuming. And even then, there's no guarantee we'd win. What are you saying? I asked, though I already knew. I'm saying that without legal guardianship filed, without official custody orders, your daughter technically still has parental rights. And her documentation, fabricated or not, creates a narrative that she was involved. A judge might believe she was struggling but stayed connected. They might rule in her favor, or at least grant joint custody. No, I said. My voice cracked. No, I can't lose him. I can't. Patricia put her hand over mine. We'll fight, she said. I'll do everything I can. But I need you to be prepared for the possibility that we might not win. I left her office in a daze. 10 years. 10 years of waking up in the middle of the night when he had nightmares. 10 years of doctor's appointments and physical therapy and fighting with schools and insurance companies. 10 years of loving him when no one else would. And it might not matter. Because I didn't have the right paperwork. I drove home. Sat in the driveway for an hour before I could make myself go inside. When I finally did, Jamie was in his room. Working on his computer like always. Grandma, he called when he heard me. Can you come here? I walked to his room. He was at his desk, surrounded by monitors showing code and data I didn't understand. I need to show you something, he said. He pulled up files on his main screen. Documents. Lots of them. What is this? I asked. Mom's forged records, he said calmly. I've been analyzing them since she left. I stared at him. How did you? She emailed them to her lawyer, he said. And their email security is garbage. I got him pretty easily. Jamie, that's illegal, I know, he said. But so is forgery. And fraud. And perjury. He clicked through the files, highlighting sections. Look, he said. These bank records? The timestamps are wrong. They claim transfers happened on specific dates, but the metadata shows they were created last week. Someone made them in Photoshop, and they didn't scrub the file information. My heart started racing. These visit logs, he continued. They reference places that didn't exist on the dates listed. A restaurant that opened 2 years after she claims to have met me there. A hospital that changed its name 3 years ago, but the log uses the new name for dates before the change. He pulled up more files. And the emails she supposedly sent you? The server timestamps show they were all generated from the same IP address last month. Never sent. Just created to look like a paper trail. I couldn't breathe. Jamie, I whispered. Can you prove all this? He looked at me with those sharp, intelligent eyes. Grandma, he said. I built software that detects fake documents. Did you really think I wouldn't use it to protect us? That's when I understood. The authentication system he'd built. The verification software is worth $2.5 million. He'd built it for this. Not for companies. Not for security firms. For us. To protect us from exactly this kind of lie. I've been running everything through my system since she showed up, he said. Every document she provided. I have proof that all of it, every single piece, is forged. The metadata doesn't lie. And my software creates an unalterable record of that analysis. Will it hold up in court? I asked. It already has, he said. 3 federal cases used my software to detect fraud. It's been validated by experts. And I can testify to exactly how it works and what it found. I started crying. Not tears of sadness. Tears of relief. Of pride. Of overwhelming love for this brilliant boy who'd spent months quietly building our defense while I'd been panicking. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. He smiled. Small. Shy. Because you would have worried more, he said. And I need you to act naturally. I needed her to think we were scared and unprepared. I needed her to keep lying, keep providing more evidence that I could analyze and disprove. Let her talk, I said, remembering his whispered words. Let her talk, he confirmed. Because every lie is more rope for her to hang herself with. The custody hearing was 3 weeks later. We sat on one side of the courtroom, me, Jamie, and Patricia Brennan. Amanda and her lawyer sat on the other side. She'd dressed carefully. Conservative suit. Minimal makeup. The picture of a reformed, devoted mother. The judge was a woman in her 60s named Judge Catherine Bacon. She had a reputation for being fair but tough. Amanda's lawyer went first. He painted the picture they'd rehearsed. A young mother overwhelmed by her son's disability. A woman who'd struggled but never given up. Who'd sent money regularly. Who'd visited when she could. Who'd always stayed in her son's life, even when it was difficult. He presented the forged documents as evidence. Bank records. Visit logs. Email correspondence. My client has maintained consistent involvement in her son's life, he argued. Mrs. Vivian Connate has done admirable work as a caregiver, but Ms. Amanda Connate is and has always been James's legal mother. She's seeking custody not to remove him from his grandmother's care, but to be actively involved in his life now that she's in a better place mentally and financially able to provide for him. He was good. Professional. Convincing. Then it was our turn. Patricia stood up. She presented my documentation. The notebooks. The receipts. 10 years of evidence showing constant, devoted care. Mrs. Vivian Connate has been the sole caregiver for James since he was 5 years old, she argued. She's provided everything: medical care, education, emotional support. She's the only parent this child has known. But can you prove Ms. Amanda Connate wasn't involved? The judge asked. She has documentation suggesting otherwise. Patricia looked at Jamie. He nodded. Your Honor, Patricia said. We'd like to call James Connate to testify. Amanda's lawyer objected immediately. Your Honor, the child is only 15. And he's the subject of this custody dispute, Judge Bacon interrupted. I'll allow it. Jamie wheeled himself to the witness stand. The bailiff helped him position his chair. He looked small up there. Young. Vulnerable. But when he spoke, his voice was clear and strong. Patricia started with basic questions. Establishing that he'd lived with me for 10 years. That he had no memory of his mother visiting or contacting him. Then she got to the important part. James, you're the creator of an authentication software called Verity Check, is that correct? Yes, ma'am, Jamie said. And what does the software do? It analyzes digital documents and media to determine authenticity, he explained. It examines metadata, timestamps, digital fingerprints, edit history, everything that leaves a trace when something is created or modified. Has your software been validated? Yes. It's been used in 3 federal cases to detect document fraud. All 3 times, the findings were upheld on appeal. Patricia pulled out a laptop. Set it up facing the judge. James, did you analyze the documents Ms. Amanda Connate provided in this case? Yes, ma'am. I ran every document through Verity Check. And what did you find? Jamie pulled up his analysis. Showed it on the screen for the judge to see. Every document is forged, he said calmly. The bank records were created in image editing software last month. You can see here, he highlighted sections, the metadata shows creation dates that don't match the claimed transaction dates. The file properties show they were never generated by banking software. He moved to the next set of documents. The visit logs reference locations and details that are factually impossible. This restaurant didn't exist on this date. This hospital had a different name. These inconsistencies are documented here. He pulled up more evidence. And the emails? They were never sent. They were created in a draft folder and then exported to look like received mail. The server timestamps prove they all originated from the same IP address, my mother's current residence, within a 3-day period last month. The courtroom was silent. Amanda's lawyer was flipping through papers, his face getting red. Judge Bacon leaned forward. Mr. Hendricks, she said to Amanda's lawyer. Did you verify any of this documentation before presenting it to this court? Your Honor, my client provided these documents. That's not what I asked, Judge Bacon said sharply. Did you verify them? He hesitated. We relied on our client's representations. So that's a no. The judge looked at Amanda. Ms. Connate, did you create these documents? Amanda's eyes went wide. She looked trapped. I had helped compiling our records. That's not what I asked either, Judge Bacon said. Did you or did you not fabricate these bank records, visit logs, and emails? Silence. I could see Amanda calculating. Trying to figure out if there was a way out. There wasn't. I may have reconstructed some records that were lost, she said carefully. Reconstructed, Judge Bacon repeated. By creating false documents and presenting them to this court as authentic evidence. Your Honor, Amanda's lawyer jumped in. Perhaps if we could take a recess. No recess, Judge Bacon said. James, can you conclusively prove these documents are fabricated? Yes, Your Honor, Jamie said. I have the full forensic analysis. Every document is probably false. The metadata doesn't lie. Judge Bacon sat back in her chair. She looked at Amanda with something between disgust and disappointment. Ms. Connate, she said. You came into my courtroom with fabricated evidence. You attempted to use forged documents to claim custody and financial guardianship of your son, a son you abandoned for 10 years. A son your mother raised while you were nowhere to be found. Your Honor, I was struggling. Everyone struggles, Judge Bacon interrupted. Struggling doesn't give you the right to lie. Struggling doesn't give you the right to forge documents and commit fraud. She looked at me. Mrs. Vivian Connate, I'm granting you full legal guardianship of James Connate. I'm also issuing a restraining order against Ms. Amanda Connate. She is not to contact James or Mrs. Connate without court approval. I started crying. I couldn't help it. 10 years of fear. 10 years of fighting. 10 years of wondering if it would ever be enough. And finally, someone believed me. Judge Bacon wasn't done. Ms. Connate, she said, turning back to Amanda. I'm referring this case to the district attorney for investigation of fraud, perjury, and forgery. You may face criminal charges. Amanda's face went white. Your Honor, please. You're dismissed, Judge Bacon said coldly. Get out of my courtroom. Amanda stood. She looked at Jamie one more time. I don't know what she was hoping to see. Forgiveness maybe. Or regret. But Jamie just looked back at her with those calm, intelligent eyes. She'd abandoned him when he needed her. And he'd been the one to prove she was lying. She left with her lawyer. Both of them are silent. And we won. Outside the courthouse, I hugged Jamie so hard I thought I might break him. You did it, I said through tears. You brilliant, amazing boy. You did it. We did it, Grandma, he said. You raised me. You gave me everything. I protected what you built. Patricia shook my hand. That was the most impressive testimony I've ever seen, she said to Jamie. You may have a future in expert witnessing if you ever get bored with software development. Jamie smiled. I'll stick with software. We went home. Made dinner. Ate quietly. It felt surreal. Like I was waiting for someone to tell me it was a mistake. That we had to go back and fight more. But we didn't. It was over. Jamie was legally mine. And Amanda couldn't touch us. The district attorney did press charges. Amanda pleaded guilty to 3 counts of fraud and 1 count of perjury. She got 18 months probation and community service. No jail time. The judge took into account that she'd been struggling with mental health issues, and the fact that she'd ultimately not succeeded in her fraud made them more lenient. Part of me wanted her to suffer more. Wanted her to feel even a fraction of the pain she'd caused us. But Jamie surprised me. I'm glad she's not going to prison, he said when we got the news. Why? I asked. I was still angry on his behalf. Because she's sick, he said simply. She did terrible things. But she needs help, not punishment. He was 15 years old and more mature than I'd ever be. You're a better person than I am, I told him. No, he said. You taught me to be who I am. You showed me what real love looks like. That's why I can forgive her. I cried again. I seem to do that a lot these days. 6 months after the custody battle, things had settled into a new normal. Jamie started a company. Not with the money from the software sale, though that helped with startup costs. But with a mission. He called it Access Tech Solutions. He hired developers. Specifically, he hired developers with disabilities. People who understood the challenges because they lived them. Together, they built assistive technologies. Affordable devices and software that made life easier for people like Jamie. His first product was an adaptive keyboard that cost a tenth of what the commercial ones did. He sold them at cost, just enough to keep the company running. I don't need to make money off this, he explained. I have money. I need to make sure people who need help can get it. He was interviewed again. This time not about the custody battle, we kept that private, but about his company and his mission. What drives you? The reporter asked. Jamie thought about it. My grandmother, he said finally. She showed me that disabilities don't define us. That we're capable of more than people think. And she did it by believing in me when no one else did. I want to give that to other people. I watched the interview from the other room, crying again. This boy. This incredible, brilliant, compassionate boy. I'd saved him when Amanda left him on my doorstep. But he'd saved me too. Gave me purpose when I thought my life was over. Gave me pride when I felt like a failure. Gave me love that was pure and uncomplicated and real. Amanda started showing up in our lives again about 8 months after the trial. Not at our house, she couldn't because of the restraining order. But she started volunteering at a rehabilitation center for people with spinal cord injuries. I heard about it from Patricia, who kept tabs on Amanda as part of the custody order follow-up. She's actually doing the work, Patricia said, sounding surprised. Not just showing up for credit. She's really helping people. I didn't know what to make of that. Part of me wanted to believe she'd changed. That maybe losing custody, facing legal consequences, and being forced to confront what she'd done had woken something up inside her. But part of me would always remember her walking away. Would always remember the cruelty of abandoning a 5-year-old paralyzed child. Some things you can't forgive, even when you want to. Jamie turned 16. We had a small party. Just us and a few of his friends from the company. People who understood him. Who valued him for his mind, not despite his disability. After everyone left, he asked me to sit with him. Grandma, he said. I want to talk about Mom. My stomach tightened. Okay, I said carefully. I want to see her, he said. I opened my mouth to protest, but he held up his hand. Not alone, he said. And not without you there. But I think I need to talk to her. To understand why she did what she did. Jamie, she hurt you. I know, he said. But I need to hear it from her. I need closure. I wanted to say no. Wanted to protect him from more pain. But he was 16. Old enough to make some of his own choices. Okay, I said finally. But I'll be right there. And if at any point you want to leave, we leave. He nodded. Thank you, Grandma. We arranged a supervised meeting through Patricia. Neutral location, a therapy office that specializes in family mediation. Amanda came alone. No lawyer this time. She looked different. Thinner. Tired. But something in her eyes was different too. Less calculating. More, broken, maybe. We sat in a room with soft chairs and too many plants. A mediator sat with us, a trained therapist who'd worked with families in crisis. Amanda looked at Jamie for a long moment. Hi, baby, she said softly. Jamie nodded. Mom. Silence. Finally, Amanda spoke. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said. I don't even expect you to understand. But I need you to know. I'm sorry. Why did you leave? Jamie asked. Direct. No preamble. Amanda's eyes filled with tears. Real ones this time, I thought. But maybe I was just getting soft. Because I was a coward, she said. Because when you got hurt, when the doctor said you'd never walk again, all I could see was everything I'd lost. The life I'd imagined for us. The normal childhood you'd never have. The activities we'd never do together. She wiped her eyes. I was selfish, she continued. I thought about what I was losing, not what you were going through. And every time I looked at you, all I saw was my failure. My inability to protect you. My inability to handle it. So you left, Jamie said flatly. So I left, she confirmed. And I told myself it was temporary. That I just needed time. But days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and the longer I stayed away, the harder it was to come back. How could I face you after what I've done? So you didn't try, Jamie said. I didn't try, Amanda agreed. And that makes it worse, doesn't it? That I chose the easy path. That I let your grandmother do everything while I ran away. She looked at me then. Mom, she said. I'm sorry. For leaving him with you. For not being there. For everything. I didn't respond. I wasn't ready to forgive her. Maybe I never would be. She turned back to Jamie. And when I saw you on the news, she said. Saw how successful you were, how brilliant. I wish I could say I came back because I missed you. Because I wanted to be your mother again. But the truth is, I came back because I saw an opportunity. I saw money. And I thought maybe I could finally have something good in my life, even if I didn't earn it. So you forged the documents, Jamie said. I forged the documents, Amanda confirmed. I hired someone to help me create fake records. I thought if I could just get custody, get access to your money, maybe I could fix my life. Maybe I could finally be the person I was supposed to be. Using my money, Jamie said. Using your money, she agreed. I convinced myself I deserved it. That I'd suffered too. That being your mother should count for something, even if I hadn't been there. She leaned forward. But I was wrong, she said. About all of it. You don't owe me anything. Your grandmother doesn't owe me anything. And I'm so sorry for what I tried to do. Jamie was quiet for a long moment. Why are you working at the rehabilitation center? He asked finally. Amanda looked surprised that he knew. Because I need to understand, she said. I need to understand what you went through. What other people like you go through. I need to. I don't know. Make amends, maybe. Or just do something that's not about me for once. Is it helping? Jamie asked. I don't know, Amanda said honestly. But I'm trying. For the first time in years, I'm actually trying. Jamie nodded slowly. Then he said something that shocked me. I forgive you. I stared at him. Amanda stared at him. What? She whispered. I forgive you, Jamie repeated. Not because what you did was okay. It wasn't. You hurt me. You hurt Grandma. You abandoned me when I needed you most. But I forgive you because holding on to anger isn't going to change anything. And because maybe, someday, you'll actually become the person you should have been. Tears streamed down Amanda's face. I don't deserve that, she said. No, Jamie agreed. You don't. But I'm giving it to you anyway. He looked at me. Grandma raised me to be better than the worst things people do to me, he said. So I'm choosing to be better. I couldn't speak. My heart was too full. This boy. This incredible boy who'd been given every reason to be bitter, angry, broken. And instead he chose grace. We didn't become a happy family after that. Amanda didn't get to just walk back into our lives and pretend nothing had happened. But over time, carefully supervised, she started to be present in small ways. She'd come to Jamie's company events. Stand in the back. Watch him speak about accessibility and technology and helping people. She'd send him messages on his birthday. Short ones. Just letting him know she was thinking of him. And slowly, very slowly, Jamie started to respond. Not with forgiveness for what she'd done. You can't really forgive someone for abandoning a child. But with acceptance that she was trying. That she was learning. That maybe, someday, she'd be a person worth knowing. A year after that first meeting, we had dinner together. All three of us. At our house, Amanda's restraining order had been lifted after she completed probation and therapy. It was awkward. Stilted. We didn't know how to be a family because we'd never really been one. But we tried. Amanda asked Jamie about his company. About his newest projects. About his life. And he answered. Told her about the developers he'd hired, the products they were building, the people they were helping. She listened. Really listened. And when he finished, she said, "I'm proud of you." Jamie nodded. "Thank you." Then he said something that made me cry for the millionth time. "You know, Mom," he said. "I've been thinking about why you came back. About the money and the fake documents and all of it." Amanda tensed. "Jamie." "And I realized something," he continued. "You came back for the wrong reasons. But maybe that doesn't matter as much as I thought it did." "What do you mean?" Amanda asked. "I mean you came back," Jamie said simply. "After 10 years, you came back. And yeah, it was for money. But you came back. And when you lost, when you could have just disappeared again, you didn't. You stayed. You worked on yourself. You tried to be better." He looked at her. "That's not nothing," he said. "It's not enough to erase what you did. But it's not nothing." Amanda's hands were shaking. "I don't know how to be your mother," she said quietly. "I don't know if I ever will." "That's okay," Jamie said. "I already have a mother. Grandma raised me. She's the one who was there. She's the one who loved me when I was difficult and different and more work than anyone should have to handle." He looked at me. "She's my mother in every way that matters," he said. I couldn't hold back the tears. Then he turned back to Amanda. "But maybe you can be something else," he said. "Not my mother. Just Amanda. Someone I know. Someone who's trying. Someone who's learning from her mistakes." Amanda nodded, crying. "I can try to be that." "Okay," Jamie said. "Then let's start there." 2 years have passed since that dinner. Jamie is 18 now. Legally an adult. Running a successful company. Helping people all over the world. Amanda volunteers 3 days a week at the rehabilitation center. She's back in school, studying social work. She wants to help families navigate the system when their children are disabled, to make sure they don't feel as lost and overwhelmed as she did. It's not redemption. Not really. But it's something. And I've learned, slowly, painfully, that sometimes people don't deserve forgiveness, but you give it to them anyway. Not for them. For yourself. I'm not there yet with Amanda. Maybe I never will be. But I can sit at a dinner table with her and my grandson and not feel like my chest is being crushed. That's progress. Last week, Jamie gave a speech at a tech conference. He talked about accessibility, about the importance of designing for everyone, about how disability doesn't mean inability. At the end, the moderator asked him, "What's the most important thing you've learned in your journey?" Jamie thought about it. Then he said, "That strength has no age. That love doesn't give up. And that the people who believe in you matter more than the people who don't." He looked at me in the audience. "My grandmother taught me that," he said. "She was 57 years old when she took in a paralyzed 5-year-old she didn't know how to care for. Everyone said she was too old. That it would be too hard. That she should give up and let the system handle it." His voice got stronger. "But she didn't," he said. "She learned. She fought. She sacrificed everything to give me a chance at life. And she did it not because she had to, but because she loved me." He smiled at me. "So if you take anything from my story," he said to the audience, "take this: don't let anyone tell you you're too old, too tired, too anything to fight for the people you love. Because my grandmother proved that love is the most powerful force in the world. And that true strength isn't about being young or strong or perfect. It's about showing up. Every single day. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." The audience applauded. But I couldn't hear it over the sound of my own heart breaking and healing at the same time. That night, Jamie and I sat on the porch. It was warm. Summer evening. The kind where the air feels soft and possibility seems endless. "Grandma," he said. "Yes, sweetheart?" "Thank you." I looked at him. "For what?" "For everything," he said. "For taking me in when Mom left. For learning how to care for me when you didn't know how. For fighting the schools and the social workers and everyone who said I couldn't succeed. For believing in me when I didn't believe in myself." He took my hand. "You gave me life twice," he said. "Once when you fed me and clothed me and kept me alive. And once when you believed in me. When you saw past my disability and saw me." I was crying again. "Of course I was. I didn't do anything special," I said. "I just loved you." "You did everything special," he said. "You gave me the world." We sat in silence for a while. Then I said something I'd been thinking about for a long time. "Jamie, if you were in my shoes, if your daughter abandoned her child, and then years later came back asking for forgiveness, could you forgive her?" He thought about it. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I want to say yes. I want to believe I'd be that strong. But I don't know if I can." He squeezed my hand. "But you don't have to forgive her, Grandma," he said. "What she did was unforgivable. You can acknowledge she's trying without forgiving what she did." I nodded. That felt right. "I love you," I said. "So much." "I love you too, Grandma," he said. "You're my hero." And sitting there on that porch, holding my grandson's hand, I realized something. I'd spent 10 years being angry. 10 years being scared. 10 years wondering if I was doing enough. But I had done enough. I'd raised an incredible human being. Someone who was brilliant and kind and strong. Someone who understood that real strength wasn't about physical ability. It was about character. And that love, real love, doesn't give up. Even when family does. Even when the world says you're too old or too tired or too anything. Real love shows up. Every single day. And I'd shown up for him. For 10 years. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat. So if you're watching this, if you're listening to my story, I want you to ask yourself something. If you were in my shoes, could you forgive your own child for abandoning hers? Could you find it in your heart to give grace to someone who showed none to you? I still don't know the answer. But I know this: forgiveness is complicated. Family is complicated. Love is complicated. But showing up? That's simple. you just do it. Day after day after day. And sometimes, if you're lucky, that's enough. My name is Vivian. I'm 69 years old now. And this is the story of how I lost my daughter, found my purpose, and learned that strength has no age. That love doesn't give up. And that sometimes, the people we save end up saving us right back. Thank you for listening. And remember, every story deserves to be heard, no matter your age.